Earth under invasion? The Council knows this was a deadly error. The Great Chamber floated in the void of space, a massive station that orbited the green planet of Viridian Prime. Inside, hundreds of beings from across the galaxy gathered for the most important meeting of the cycle. The Galactic Council was about to decide the fate of a small blue world called Earth. Jiwan stood at the back of the observation deck, her hands trembling as she watched the proceedings. She had spent 2 years on Earth, living among humans, studying their culture and their ways. Now she wished she had never sent her reports back to the Council. They had taken her warnings and twisted them into something dangerous. Speaker Velthar rose from his elevated platform, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture of authority. His insect-like face clicked with satisfaction as he addressed the assembly. The massive alien had built his career on conquest, and Earth was to be his crowning achievement. Distinguished members of the Council, Velthar began, his voice echoing through the chamber. We have reviewed the reports from our observer on the planet designated Earth. The species there, these humans, are aggressive and violent. They wage war upon themselves constantly. They poison their own world. They reach toward the stars with primitive rockets and satellites. Jiwan felt her heart sink as the Council members murmured in agreement. They did not understand. Yes, humans fought each other, but they also loved fiercely. Yes, they damaged their world, but they also worked to heal it. Yes, their technology was basic, but their creativity was boundless. Ambassador Hyuk, one of the few Korean diplomats in the Council, stood to speak. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had read all of Jiwan's reports, the real ones, not the edited versions Velthar presented. Speaker Velthar, I must object, Hyuk said calmly. The observer's full report suggests that humans are more complex than you present. They have art, music, philosophy. They care for their young with dedication we rarely see. Perhaps we should establish diplomatic contact first, rather than military action. Velthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Ambassador Hyuk, your species shares certain genetic markers with these humans. Perhaps that clouds your judgment. The humans are decades away from light-speed travel. If we wait until they achieve it, they will spread like a plague across the galaxy. We must act now while they are confined to one world. The vote came quickly. 300 species voted to invade. Only 12 voted against. Earth's fate was sealed. Far above Earth's solar system, Taman sat in his surveillance vessel, watching the screens with growing horror. He was Jiwan's partner, assigned to monitor space activity around Earth. Now he watched as ships began to gather, hundreds of them forming an invasion fleet. He tried to send a message to Earth, to warn them, but his communications were blocked. The Council had jammed all channels. He was helpless, able only to watch as 300 warships powered their engines and set course for the small blue planet. On Earth, Jiwan received the official notice. The invasion would begin in 3 days. She was to evacuate immediately. Instead, she deleted the message and walked to the window of her apartment in Seoul. Below, millions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware that doom approached from the stars. She thought about the people she had met. The grandmother who shared her home-cooked meals, the children who played in the park, laughing without fear, the students who dreamed of exploring space someday. They deserved a chance. They deserved a warning. Jiwan made her decision. She would betray the Council. She would tell the humans what was coming. She contacted the Korean government first, then helped them reach the other nations. At first, no one believed her. An alien observer warning of alien invasion seemed too impossible. But she showed them proof. She showed them images of the fleet. She gave them technical data on Council weapons and shields. The world erupted in chaos. Governments scrambled to respond. Military forces mobilized. Scientists worked frantically to understand the alien technology Jiwan described. In 3 days, humanity tried to prepare for a war they could not possibly win. The fleet arrived on schedule. Velthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the blue planet on the main screen. It was beautiful, he admitted, rich with water and life. After the humans were removed, it would make an excellent colony world for loyal Council species. He opened a communication channel to Earth. His message was broadcast to every screen, every radio, every device on the planet. Billions of humans heard his words simultaneously. People of Earth, I am Speaker Velthar of the Galactic Council. Your world has been evaluated and found wanting. Your violence, your primitive nature. and your potential for future aggression make you unsuitable for membership in galactic civilization. You are hereby ordered to surrender immediately. Lay down all weapons. Prepare for processing and relocation. Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities. You have one standard cycle to comply. In the newly established Unified Defense Command Center deep beneath the Swiss Alps, leaders from every nation gathered around a table. They looked at each other. These men and women who had been enemies just days before, now they were united by a common threat. The Secretary General of the United Nations, an elderly woman from Brazil, looked around the table. "Does anyone wish to surrender?" she asked. Silence filled the room. Then Admiral Minji, commander of the Pacific Defense Fleet, stood. The Korean woman was young for an admiral, promoted rapidly due to her brilliant tactical mind. She looked at the screen showing Velthar's face. "Send him our response," she said quietly. A single word was transmitted back to the fleet. Just one word, but it carried the weight of 8 billion human voices behind it. "No." Velthar stared at the screen in disbelief. He read the message again, certain there must be some mistake. These primitives, these backward creatures who barely had spacecraft, were refusing the Council's generous offer of survival? His mandibles clicked in anger. "Very well," he said. "Prepare all weapons. Target their military installations. Show them the price of defiance." 300 warships moved into orbital positions around Earth, their weapons powered up, energy readings spiking across every spectrum. In cities across the world, people looked up at the sky, seeing lights that should not be there. Parents held their children. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Scientists made last-minute calculations. And in that moment, before the first shot was fired, humanity made a collective decision. They would not go quietly into extinction. They would not kneel before tyrants from the stars. If they were to die, they would die fighting. The Council had made their first mistake. They had given Earth 3 days to prepare. In those 3 days, humans had done what they did best. They had adapted. They had innovated. They had united. The Council's second mistake was assuming the fight would be easy. They were about to learn a lesson that would echo across the galaxy for generations. They were about to learn what happened when you threatened humanity's home. The war for Earth was about to begin, and the Council had no idea what they had started. Earth under invasion? The Council knows. This was a deadly error. The first orbital bombardment began at dawn over Beijing. Beams of purple energy lanced down from the sky, striking military bases with precision. Explosions bloomed across the landscape as ammunition depots erupted. The Council fleet maintained perfect formation, their shields shimmering as they unleashed destruction on the world below. Velthar watched from his command chair, satisfied. The humans had no orbital defenses worth mentioning. A few satellites, some space stations, and primitive shuttles. Nothing that could threaten his fleet. This would be over by sunset. He was wrong. Admiral Minji stood in the command center of her flagship, the carrier Incheon, hidden behind the moon. Around her, converted civilian vessels and military spacecraft formed Earth's desperate defense fleet. Mining ships equipped with railguns, cargo haulers carrying nuclear missiles, tourist shuttles modified to carry plasma charges. It was a joke of a fleet by Council standards, but it was all humanity had. All ships, Minji spoke calmly into her headset. Execute Plan Thunder. From craters and valleys across the moon's surface, hidden platforms activated. Railguns that had been assembled in secret over the past 3 days began firing. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, crossed the distance to Earth orbit in seconds. The Council ships never saw them coming. Shields designed to stop energy weapons did nothing against solid projectiles. The first slug punched through a destroyer's hull, the kinetic energy vaporizing everything in its path. The ship broke apart, debris spinning into space. Velthar jerked upright in his chair. "What was that? Report!" "Unknown weapons fire from the moon, Speaker. We've lost 3 ships, 4 more damaged. The moon? Impossible!" Our scans showed no weapons there, but the railguns kept firing. The Council had scanned for power signatures and energy weapons. They had not looked for simple mechanical devices buried under lunar regolith. Minji allowed herself a small smile. Phase 2. All ships break from cover. Attack Formation Delta. Earth's fleet emerged from behind the moon, engines burning at maximum. They were slower than Council ships, less maneuverable, but they had surprise on their side. On the surface, Doyen worked frantically in his laboratory beneath Seoul. The Korean scientist had been given an impossible task: reverse engineer alien technology in 3 days. He had not slept. He had barely eaten. But he had succeeded. "Fire it up," he shouted to his team. Deep underground, experimental directed energy weapons came online. They were crude copies of Council technology, built from G1 specifications and salvaged satellite parts. They might work once, maybe twice, before burning out. But once was all they needed. The weapons fired. Beams of concentrated energy shot upward, punching through kilometers of rock and soil before emerging into space. They were not as powerful as Council weapons, but they were powerful enough. One beam caught a Council frigate in the engines. The ship exploded in a ball of plasma. In orbit, chaos erupted. The Council fleet found itself under attack from multiple directions. From the moon, from Earth's surface, from the ragtag fleet approaching at high speed. Their perfect formation broke as ships maneuvered to avoid fire. Somin sat in a basement in Busan, surrounded by computers and screens. The young Korean woman was one of Earth's best hackers, and now she was attempting something insane. She was trying to hack alien computers. Ji-won had given them a gift: access codes and network protocols. The Council's communication system was sophisticated but arrogant. They had never imagined a primitive species might infiltrate it. Somin's fingers flew across her keyboard. Come on, she muttered. Then suddenly she was in. "Yes, I've got access to their command network." She began sending false orders, rerouting communications, creating confusion. Council ships received contradictory commands. Some were told to retreat, others to advance. Squadrons lost contact with their commanders. In the vacuum of space, the disciplined Council fleet began to fall apart. Colonel Junho commanded the orbital defense platforms, hidden among Earth satellites and space debris. His Marines had been living in those cramped stations for 3 days, waiting for this moment. Now as Council ships passed nearby, his platforms activated. All stations weapons-free. Fire at will. Missiles and lasers erupted from what the Council had dismissed as communication satellites. At close range, even primitive weapons could damage shields. A Council cruiser took 3 missiles to its port side and began venting atmosphere. Taemin, still in his surveillance vessel, made his choice. He had watched from hiding long enough. He activated his weapon systems and dove toward the nearest Council ship, a destroyer that was firing on Earth's surface. His ship was small but fast, and he knew Council tactics better than they knew his. He fired on the destroyer's weak points, the spots where shields overlapped imperfectly. The destroyer turned to engage this unexpected traitor, but Taemin was already gone, looping around to attack another ship. The battle raged for hours. Earth's fleet fought with desperate courage, knowing they protected their homeworld. They used tactics the Council had never seen. Ships deliberately collided with Council vessels, sacrificing themselves to bring down larger opponents. Pilots flew through debris fields at speeds that would kill them if they miscalculated. Every advantage of technology the Council had was met with human creativity and willingness to take risks no sane species would consider. But courage alone was not enough. Earth's fleet was dying. For every Council ship destroyed, humanity lost 3. The converted civilian vessels were too fragile, too slow. Admiral Minji watched her fleet shrink and knew they could not win this fight. Then Doyeon's voice came over her communicator. "Admiral, we have something new. I do not know if it will work, but we are out of options." "What is it?" "We call it the probability mine. Dr. Hana's team developed it from quantum mechanics theory. It creates fields of uncertainty in space. Things that enter the field might simply cease to exist in this reality." Minji did not fully understand the science, but she understood weapons. "How many do you have?" 12. "We can deploy them in orbit." "Do it. Send me the coordinates. I will lure the Council fleet into the field." The mines were launched from Earth's surface, small devices that did not look dangerous. They activated in orbit, creating invisible zones of quantum uncertainty. The Council sensors could not detect them, because they existed in a state between real and unreal. Minji led her remaining ships on a desperate run through the minefield. Behind her, Council ships followed, eager to destroy the last of Earth's defenders. The first Council ship to enter the field simply vanished. One moment it existed, the next it was gone, erased from reality. The second ship made it halfway through before its hull began to phase in and out of existence. Crew members screamed as parts of their bodies existed in different quantum states. The ship tore itself apart from the inside. Velthar watched in horror as 12 of his ships disappeared or were destroyed by weapons that should not exist. Retreat! Pull back beyond the moon. The Council fleet withdrew in disarray, leaving behind debris and bodies. They regrouped beyond lunar orbit, licking their wounds and counting their losses. 40 ships. They had lost 40 ships to a species that barely had space travel. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was terrifying. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. They had survived the first attack. They had hurt the invaders. But in the command center, Minji looked at the casualty reports and felt no joy. They had lost half their fleet. The experimental weapons were burned out. The railguns on the moon were out of ammunition, and she knew the Council would come back. Next time with more ships. Next time prepared for human tactics. Velthar composed his message to the Council, his mandibles clicking with barely controlled rage. He had promised them an easy victory. Instead, he had suffered the worst military defeat the Council had experienced in a century. Requesting reinforcements, he wrote. Enemy more capable than anticipated. Authorized deployment of full battle fleet, 1,000 ships. We will crush this world and make an example of it. The Council approved his request. 1,000 warships would arrive in 2 weeks. Earth had that long to prepare for annihilation. Earth under invasion? The Council knows this was a deadly error. Earth transformed in 14 days. Every factory, every workshop, every garage became part of the war effort. The victory over Velthar's first fleet had given humanity something precious: hope. And with hope came determination. Yuna worked 18-hour shifts in the converted automobile factory outside Seoul. The Korean engineer had never built a weapon before 2 weeks ago. Now she oversaw the production of plasma cannons, directing workers who assembled alien technology with human tools. The weapons were ugly, crude by Council standards, but they worked. We need to increase output, she told her exhausted team. The Council is sending 1,000 ships. We need every weapon we can build. Around the world, similar scenes played out. Children too young to fight collected metal for recycling. Elderly people who remembered older wars shared their knowledge of rationing and survival. Scientists collaborated across borders, sharing discoveries in real time. Humanity had never been so united, so focused on a single goal. In a secret facility beneath the Gobi Desert, Hana worked on her masterpiece. The Korean astrophysicist had proven her probability mines could work, but 12 mines would not stop 1,000 ships. She needed something bigger, something that would make the Council fleet hesitate. What if we could create a field across the entire orbital zone? She asked her team. Not to destroy ships, but to make space itself unpredictable. Their sensors would fail. Their navigation would become guesswork. They would be flying blind. Her colleague, an older Japanese physicist, shook his head. The power requirements would be enormous. We would need to tap into multiple power grids simultaneously. Then that is what we will do. Doyun received the captured Council vessel with barely contained excitement. It was damaged, drifting, its crew dead from exposure when their life support failed. But the technology inside was intact. Cutting-edge Council systems were now in human hands. Start pulling it apart, he ordered his team. I want to know how every system works. We have 12 days. They worked around the clock, documenting, analyzing, and reverse engineering. The Council shield technology was particularly interesting. It operated on principles that human science was just beginning to understand. But understanding was not necessary to copy. They could build approximations, crude versions that might give Earth ships a fighting chance. Jinwoo prepared for the most dangerous mission of his life. The Korean Special Forces operative had volunteered for an insane plan. Infiltrate the Council fleet before the second battle began. Use the captured vessel to get close, then sabotage as many ships as possible from within. You understand this is likely a one-way trip, Admiral Minji told him. I understand, Admiral. But if I can take down even a dozen ships before the battle starts, that improves our odds. Then good hunting, Colonel. Jinwoo and his team of 12 commandos boarded the captured vessel. Engineers had repaired the basic systems and programmed it to broadcast Council identification codes. They would approach the gathering fleet beyond Mars, pretending to be a damaged ship seeking repairs. With luck, they would get close enough to matter. Ambassador Hyuk worked his own kind of war from inside the Council. The Korean diplomat had contacts throughout the galactic government. species who were uncomfortable with the invasion, but too afraid to speak openly. Now he reached out to them, sharing information that G1 sent from Earth. He showed them footage of the first battle. He showed them human children helping to build defenses. He showed them elderly humans sharing food with neighbors. He painted a picture of a species fighting for survival, not monsters that needed to be destroyed. Some dismissed his evidence, but others began to question. Whispers spread through the council. Was this invasion truly necessary? Were humans really the threat Velthar claimed? The whispers would not stop the fleet, but they planted seeds of doubt, and doubt could be a powerful weapon. On Earth, Minji oversaw the construction of humanity's first real war fleet. They had 200 vessels now, built in orbital shipyards that had been expanded frantically over 2 weeks. The ships were still inferior to Council designs, but they were better than converted civilian craft. They had shields, proper weapons, and armor plating. More importantly, they had trained crews. Taman had defected completely, bringing with him detailed knowledge of Council tactics. He trained Earth's pilots in what to expect, how to fight, how to survive. The Council fights in rigid formations, he explained to a room full of pilots. They believe in discipline and order above all. Use that against them. Be unpredictable. Break their formations. Make them react to you instead of following their battle plans. Jiwan worked with military planners, using her knowledge of Council psychology to predict how they would attack. She knew Velthar's replacement would be cautious after the first defeat. They would come with overwhelming force, expecting Earth to be cowed by their numbers. They will arrange their fleet in a standard intimidation formation, she told Minji. All 1,000 ships in perfect ranks, advancing slowly to give us time to see how outmatched we are. They want us to surrender before firing a shot. And if we do not surrender, then they will target our cities directly. They will try to break our will by killing civilians. Minji's face hardened. Then we cannot let them reach bombardment range. We hit them in deep space, before they get close to Earth. Hyuk's intelligence network provided a gift. The Council's entire command structure for the invasion fleet was centralized in 3 massive command carriers. Destroy those and the fleet would lose coordination. 1,000 ships would become 1,000 individual captains making their own decisions. That is our target, Minji told her commanders. We split our forces into 3 strike groups. Each group targets 1 command carrier. We hit them simultaneously, fast and hard, then scatter before they can respond effectively. It was a desperate plan, requiring perfect timing and incredible courage, but it was all they had. Jinwoo's team reached the Council staging area 4 days before the invasion was scheduled to begin. The captured ships' identification codes worked perfectly. They were granted permission to dock with a repair vessel, and Jinwoo's commandos slipped into the fleet. Over 3 days, they moved between ships, planting viruses in computer systems, sabotaging power cores, and rigging weapons to malfunction. They were ghosts, invisible in the chaos of a fleet preparing for battle. By the time anyone noticed something was wrong, Jinwoo's team had compromised over 30 vessels. On the 4th day, they targeted Velthar's replacement, Speaker Thralvok, and his flagship. The massive dreadnought was the pride of the Council fleet, armed with weapons that could destroy continents. Jinwoo's team placed shaped charges on the power core's containment system. When the ship fired its main weapons, the core would overload and explode. Time to go, Jinwoo told his team, but alarms began blaring. They had been discovered. Run, Jinwoo ordered. His team scattered through the ship, fighting running battles with Council security. 3 of his people died, buying time for the others to reach their shuttle. Jinwoo was the last to board, taking a plasma burn to his shoulder as he dove through the airlock. The shuttle launched, streaking away from the flagship as Council ships opened fire. They made it through the gauntlet, jumping to faster-than-light speed just as their shields failed. The invasion fleet departed for Earth 2 days later. 1,000 ships moving in perfect formation, ready to erase humanity from the galaxy. Speaker Thralvok stood on his bridge, confident in his overwhelming superiority. He had no idea his flagship was a time bomb. He had no idea 30 of his ships would fail at critical moments. He had no idea that Earth's orbital space was now a maze of quantum uncertainty. And he certainly had no idea what humans were capable of when fighting for their home. The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They arranged themselves in perfect ranks, a display of power meant to terrify the primitives into submission. Instead, Admiral Minji broadcast a message that would become legendary across the galaxy. "You came to our home to destroy us. You should have sent more ships." Earth under invasion. The Council knows this was a deadly error. The second battle lasted 3 days and ended with the Council fleet in full retreat. They left behind 600 destroyed ships and countless dead. Thralvok's flagship had exploded exactly as Jinwoo planned, taking the speaker and dozens of senior commanders with it. The remaining command carriers were destroyed by coordinated strikes from Earth's fleet. Without leadership, the Council ships broke formation and fled. Earth celebrated, but Admiral Minji knew the truth. They had won a battle, not the war, and now they had truly made the Council angry. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light, carried by communication networks and merchant vessels. A primitive species had defeated the Council twice. Impossible stories became confirmed facts. The galaxy watched in amazement and, for some hope, the Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was filled with angry voices demanding action. They declared humans a Category 5 extinction threat, the highest danger rating in Council history. A total extermination fleet was authorized, 10,000 ships. Earth would be reduced to lifeless rock. But something unexpected happened. 3 species refused to contribute ships to the fleet. Ambassador Hyuk's quiet campaign had borne fruit. Doubt had taken root. Earth had 6 months before the extermination fleet arrived. 6 months to prepare for the end or find a miracle. Captain Kyung commanded humanity's first stealth ship, the Silent Thunder. It was a marvel of combined human and salvaged Council technology. Capable of moving through space nearly undetected, Kyung was a Korean pilot who had grown up dreaming of exploring the stars. Now he would explore them as a raider. "All crew, prepare for jump," he announced. "Target is a Council supply depot in the Outer Rim. We go in fast, hit them hard, and vanish before they know what happened." The Silent Thunder jumped to faster than light speed, traveling deeper into Council space than any human had gone before. They emerged near a logistics station, a massive facility that supplied dozens of Council military bases. It was supposed to be safe, far from any threat. Kyung's ship fired missiles into the station's fuel storage tanks. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. Before Council ships could respond, the Silent Thunder was gone, jumping away to strike another target. Over the next month, Kyung's raids became legendary. He hit supply lines, destroyed communication relays, and attacked isolated outposts. Each raid was a pinprick, barely noticeable to the vast Council. But pinpricks added up, and more importantly, they inspired others. 3 subjugated species rose in rebellion, emboldened by human success. If primitives from Earth could resist the Council, why couldn't they? The galaxy began to burn with revolt. Nari traveled through space in an unarmed diplomatic vessel on the most important mission Earth had ever undertaken. The Korean woman was a career diplomat who had spent years negotiating trade deals and treaties. Now she negotiated for humanity's survival. Her destination was the Outer Rim, where species conquered long ago by the Council nursed old grievances and dreams of freedom. She carried with her a simple offer: fight with humanity against the Council, and together they could break the chains of tyranny. The first species she approached was the Kelvorians, a reptilian people who had been conquered 200 years ago. Their leader, an old warrior named Shek, listened to her proposal with skeptical eyes. "Why should we help you, human? The Council will crush your world in 6 months. You cannot win." Nari met his gaze without flinching. "Perhaps we cannot win, but we will fight anyway because freedom is worth dying for. The question is, do you still believe that? Or have 200 years of chains made you forget what it means to stand tall?" Shek was silent for a long moment. Then he bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. "We remember. The Kelvorian fleet will join your alliance." Over 3 months, Nari visited a dozen species. Not all agreed to help. Some were too afraid. Some had been broken by centuries of servitude, but 3 species joined Earth's alliance, bringing with them 3,000 ships and hope that the Council could be defeated. Jamin coordinated the growing intelligence network from Earth. The Korean intelligence officer had a gift for seeing patterns in chaos, connecting disparate pieces of information into useful intelligence. Now he managed a network of spies, defectors, and sympathizers spread across the galaxy. "The Council is fracturing," he told Minji during a briefing. "Half support the extermination order. The other half questions whether it is necessary. Ambassador Hayek reports that 12 species are threatening to leave the Council entirely if Earth is destroyed. Will they actually leave? Minji asked. Unknown. But the fact that they are threatening it means the Council is weaker than they appear. We can use that. Back on Earth, construction continued at a frantic pace. 200 warships had become 400. Orbital defenses were rebuilt and strengthened. The quantum uncertainty fields that Hana developed now covered all approaches to Earth. Any attacking fleet would have to navigate a maze of invisible danger. Doyon completed his most ambitious project, the Reaper Protocol. It was an artificial intelligence program designed to infiltrate Council ship computers and shut them down. The code was elegant and vicious, spreading like a virus through networks, learning and adapting as it went. It is ready, he told the assembled commanders. But I must warn you, using this will reveal our capability. The Council will develop countermeasures. We can only use it once, and it must count. Save it for the extermination fleet, Minji decided. When 10,000 ships arrive, we unleash everything we have. Taman continued training human pilots, but now he trained alongside pilots from allied species. The Kelvorians flew aggressive attack patterns. The Vorath preferred defensive tactics. The Shendari were experts at electronic warfare. Each species brought their own strengths to the alliance. We are creating something new, Taman told Jiwan during a rare moment of rest. Not just a military alliance, but a coalition of free peoples. If we survive this, we will have changed the galaxy forever. Jiwan smiled tiredly. If we survive. That is still a very large if. Ambassador Hayek's position within the Council became increasingly dangerous. He openly opposed the extermination order, giving speeches that were broadcast across the galaxy. He called the attack on Earth genocide and demanded the Council pursue diplomatic solutions instead. Many Council members called him a traitor. Some demanded his arrest, but Hyuk continued, because he believed in a simple truth. If the Council could exterminate humanity for the crime of resisting conquest, then no species in the galaxy was safe. His speeches reached across space, heard by billions of beings on thousands of worlds. Public opinion began to shift. Not everyone agreed with him, but enough did to matter. Protests erupted on several Council worlds. Young beings of various species began to question whether the Council's way was the right way. The Council leadership responded by classifying all information about Earth, banning public discussion of the war, but information, like water, always found a way through cracks. 6 months passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. Earth's alliance grew stronger. The Kelvorian fleet practiced coordinated maneuvers with human ships. The Vorath shared their advanced shield technology. The Shendari taught humans how to hack Council communications more effectively, but intelligence reports confirmed the worst. The extermination fleet was assembling. 10,000 warships drawn from every corner of Council space. The fleet was commanded by Supreme Commander Tharvan, an ancient being who had led the Council military for 3 centuries. He had never lost a major battle. Minji studied everything they knew about Tharvan, searching for weaknesses. The ancient commander was brilliant, experienced, and utterly ruthless. He would not underestimate humans like his predecessors had. He would come prepared for every trick, every tactic that had worked before. So we need new tricks, Minji told her staff. Tactics we have never used, weapons we have kept secret. We have to surprise him. Because if this becomes a straightforward battle, we lose. President Yoonji addressed humanity one final time before the fleet arrived. The Korean woman had led Earth's government through the most desperate months in human history. Now she stood before cameras, speaking to 8 billion people. In 3 days, the largest fleet ever assembled will arrive at our world. They come not to conquer, but to exterminate. They believe we are a threat that must be destroyed. Perhaps they are right to fear us because we have proven that chains can be broken and tyrants can be defeated. We stand here today not as different nations or peoples, but as one human family. And we stand with allies from across the stars who believe, as we do, that freedom is worth any price. Whatever happens, we face it together. Earth does not kneel. Across the planet, people watched and prepared. They had done everything possible. Now they would see if it was enough. In orbit, Minji stood on the bridge of her flagship looking at the combined fleet arrayed around Earth. 400 human ships and 3,000 allied vessels. Against 10,000 Council warships, it seemed pitifully small, but numbers were not everything. Humanity had proven that twice already. They would prove it once more or die trying. The Supreme Commander's fleet arrived exactly on schedule. emerging from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Earth under invasion? The Council knows this was a deadly error. Supreme Commander Tharvan stood on the bridge of his super dreadnought, studying the defensive fleet arrayed around Earth. 3,400 ships against his 10,000. The primitives had found allies, but it would not save them. Numbers were numbers, and the Council had the advantage. All ships advance in formation Beta 7, he commanded. Maintain spacing. Watch for their quantum mines. Sensors at maximum. The massive fleet began moving forward, a wall of metal and weapons that blotted out the stars. Every captain had been briefed on human tactics. Every ship was prepared for unconventional warfare. Tharvan had studied both previous battles extensively. He would not underestimate these creatures. On Earth's flagship, Admiral Minji watched the Council fleet approach. Beside her stood Taemin Jiwan and her command staff. Everyone was tense, knowing that the next hours would decide humanity's fate. Minho, is the Reaper protocol ready? Minji asked. The Korean AI researcher nodded. He looked exhausted, having spent the last week making final adjustments to the code. Ready, Admiral. Waiting for your command. Hold for now. Let them get closer. We need maximum effect. The fleets drew nearer, crossing the outer solar system. Tharvan's forces moved carefully, scanning for threats, ready for anything. They detected the quantum uncertainty fields and adjusted course to avoid them. They spotted hidden weapons platforms and destroyed them with long-range fire. The Supreme Commander had learned from previous mistakes, but he could not account for everything. Captain Kyung's Silent Thunder and 3 other stealth ships had been hiding in the asteroid belt for days, their systems powered down to minimal levels. Now, as the Council fleet passed their position, they activated and struck. The stealth ships were not powerful enough to destroy Council warships, but that was not their mission. They fired specialized missiles that latched onto Council hulls and began broadcasting false sensor data. Dozens of Council ships suddenly appeared to their own fleet as enemy vessels. Friendly fire erupted as confused captains fired on allies. Tharvan cursed and ordered all ships to cease fire and verify targets manually. It cost him precious minutes and dozens of ships to friendly fire. The ancient commander's respect for human tactics increased even as his anger grew. Forward elements, engage the enemy fleet. All other ships continue advance. The battle began in earnest. Council ships and the Allied fleet met in a clash of energy weapons and missiles. Space lit up with explosions as shields failed and hulls ruptured. The Allied forces fought with desperate courage, but they were outmatched. For every Council ship destroyed, 2 Allied vessels died. Minji watched her fleet shrink and waited for the right moment. She needed Tharvan's forces committed, spread out across the battlefield. She needed chaos. Then she would unleash the Reaper. The Kelvorian ships fought with savage aggression, ramming damaged Council vessels and fighting at point-blank range. The Vorath used their superior shields to protect smaller human ships, acting as mobile fortresses. The Shandari hacked Council communications, adding to the confusion. But slowly, inevitably, they were being ground down. Admiral, we have lost 40% of the Allied fleet, her tactical officer reported. Casualties are severe. Hold position, Minji ordered. Not yet. On Earth's surface, Hana activated the final layer of orbital defenses. The quantum uncertainty fields intensified, expanding to cover more space. Council ships entering the fields began experiencing system failures and navigation errors. Some simply vanished, translated into alternate realities. Others went mad, their crews driven insane by existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Tharvan saw a quarter of his fleet become trapped in the quantum maze and growled in frustration. These humans and their impossible weapons. But he still had 7,000 ships. More than enough to finish this. All ships focus fire on Earth itself. Bombardment formation. We end this now. 4,000 Council warships broke from the main battle and accelerated toward Earth, weapons charging for planetary bombardment. If they reached range, they would burn the planet's surface to glass. Minji saw them coming and knew the moment had arrived. Minho, activate the Reaper protocol. Give it everything. The AI researcher's fingers flew across his console. Reaper protocol activating now. The code unleashed was beautiful and terrible. It spread through the Council fleet's computer networks like wildfire, jumping from ship to ship through their own communication channels. The Reaper learned as it spread, adapting to countermeasures, finding new vulnerabilities, and shutting down system after system. 3,000 Council ships suddenly went dark. Engines failed. Weapons powered down. Life support systems switched to emergency backup. The ships drifted helpless as their crews scrambled to regain control. Tharvan watched in horror as his fleet collapsed around him. "What is happening? Report." "Unknown cyber attack, Commander. We are losing ships across all squadrons. The computers are being taken over by something we cannot stop." The ancient commander's centuries of experience served him well. He immediately ordered all affected ships to perform hard shutdowns and reboot with backup systems. It would take time, but it would purge the virus. But time was something he no longer had. "All ships, endgame maneuver," Minji ordered. "Execute now." Earth's remaining fleet, battered but unbroken, charged directly at the Council formation. Behind them, Hana's quantum weapons activated at full power. The orbital space around Earth became a maze of impossible physics, a trap that the Council fleet had unwittingly entered. The Allied ships knew the safe paths through the quantum fields. The Council ships did not. As they tried to maneuver, they stumbled into uncertainty zones. Ships collided with phantom asteroids that existed in probability states. Navigation systems gave contradictory readings. Reality itself became unreliable. Tharvan's super dreadnought, the largest warship ever built, found itself trapped in a quantum field. The crew watched as parts of their ship existed in multiple states simultaneously. The ship began tearing itself apart from internal contradictions. "Evacuate the ship," Tharvan ordered. But the escape pods were also affected by the quantum uncertainty. Some launched successfully. Others launched into different dimensions. Still others never launched at all, existing in a state of having both launched and not launched. On Earth's surface, Colonel Junho commanded the final defense line. Thousands of ground-to-space weapons had been prepared for this moment. As Council ships that survived the quantum maze entered bombardment range, Junho gave the order. "All batteries fire." The sky lit up with beams and missiles rising from every continent. It was not elegant or sophisticated. It was a wall of projectiles and energy, thrown upward with the desperate strength of a species fighting for survival. Council ships burned as they ran into the defensive fire. Those that survived found themselves facing another threat. President Yunji had authorized the use of Earth's entire nuclear arsenal. Hundreds of missiles armed with weapons humans had created to destroy themselves were now turned against the invaders. The missiles were too slow to catch Council ships normally, but ships trapped in quantum uncertainty fields could not evade. Nuclear fire bloomed in orbit, primitive atomic weapons proving that simple solutions could still be effective. The Council ships had shields that could stop laser fire and plasma bolts, but the sheer kinetic force and radiation of nuclear explosions overwhelmed their defenses. Jinwoo, recovered from his wounds, led a boarding assault on the Council's command carrier. His special forces team used the chaos of battle to approach in small shuttles. Too small and fast for the massive ship's weapons to target effectively. They breached the hull and fought their way to the bridge. The fighting was brutal in close quarters. Council Marines were well-trained and well-equipped, but Jinwoo's team fought with the desperation of people who had nothing left to lose. They cleared corridor after corridor, paying for each meter with blood. They reached the bridge and found the Council admirals coordinating the fleet. Jinwoo could have killed them all. Instead, he forced them to witness what was happening. He made them watch as their fleet died, destroyed by the primitives they had come to exterminate. "This is what happens when you underestimate humanity," Jinwoo told them quietly. "Remember it." Tharvan's super dreadnought broke apart, unable to maintain structural integrity while existing in multiple quantum states. The Supreme Commander, the ancient being who had never lost a major battle, died when his ship ceased to exist in baseline reality. The Council fleet broke completely. With their command structure destroyed, their systems compromised by the Reaper Protocol, and their ships trapped in quantum uncertainty, individual captains made the only rational decision. They ran. Ships that could still navigate jumped to faster than light speed and fled. Ships that could not surrendered. Of the 10,000 warships that had arrived to exterminate humanity, barely 3,000 escaped. The rest were destroyed, captured, or lost in quantum dimensions. The Battle of Earth was over. Humanity had won. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. The Council's defeat triggered revolutions across dozens of worlds. Species that had been conquered centuries ago rose up, inspired by Earth's example.